So today, Alex, I'm going to be, giving this interview, and then we're going to open up, time permitting, for questions at the end from our limited partners on the call. Today is a webinar where it's just our team and investors in the firm. So nice, relatively small group relative to the normal webinars we're doing. And yeah, really appreciate your time today and sharing your story with us. And yeah, as we emailed, I had kind of a list of questions and things to get started, but I'd love to just start off with like something a little more personal, which is, today you're running like fastest growing Bitcoin wallet. But when you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? How did that compare to what actually happened?
Well, when I was a kid, I was really into biology. I really loved animals, and I was drawing skeletons of all kinds of animals, and I knew how to differentiate one kind of fox from another and what traits, how do you differentiate the female from the male in every species. And I was maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years old. I don't know, I was obsessed with it. But a bit later, I started studying computer animation, and I did a few courses on that. And I've always been pretty good at drawing, so I really wanted to be an animator for a Disney movie or something like that. But I don't know. Just when I grew up, I got more interested in computers and technology and design, and I started studying in college. My first degree was on computer science, but I dropped out. Or I would say I changed the degrees from computer science to product design, because I just found my specialty, or what I wanted to do, and it was in product design.
Cool. Who are some of your biggest influences in terms of product design, or just design and creation more broadly?
Oh, there are a lot. There are a lot of them, but I think my biggest influence was Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. What was that Steve that did it for you?
I think it was how he understood not just the product, but the brand, the identity of your brand and your style, and what you mean to people, and actually create a product and a set of products and services that are cohesive to that vision. So for me, that was more like, instead of just looking at a product and saying, okay, it ticks all the boxes, which is something that they wanted to show to teach us in university, how to design something. Just a list of check boxes. Look at what everybody else is doing and just do the same thing and call it with another name. But I really like Steve's courage to be different and try to focus on what matters of a product and of an ecosystem, and I think that influenced me a lot, and part of why Handcash is the way it is because of Steve Jobs, I think.
So yeah, why did you start Handcash? And maybe kind of to transition, how do you think Steve Jobs's business philosophy and product design has been integrated into Handcash?
We started Handcash because we had for 2 or 3 years, Rafa and myself, my co-founder, we built a few apps, just silly apps, okay, but they were like a Pokemon Go radar that was super successful, and there was a contact swapping app. By tapping phones, you were exchanging business cards, so something like that. And we made some pretty cool apps that basically were 1 or 2 screens and did just one thing, but they did it beautifully. And when we saw Bitcoin for another previous startup that we had, it was very complicated for us. So after the experience that we gained by building these silly apps, we decided to create one of these silly apps with Bitcoin, and basically was taking our contact swapping application that used NFC for sending Bitcoin by tapping the phones. And we did we built a first MVP. It was kind of a pretty big deal on social media, and that's when we got invested by Enchain, etc. But I think for example, you can see the influence of Steve Jobs or even Elon Musk or even Peter Thiel, who co-founded or was part of PayPal in the early days. I think it's this obsession that we have, both Rafa and myself, about vertical integration. We are big fans of vertical integration. You can see this in companies like IKEA, Apple, Tesla. Those are companies that we really love because they take care of everything: support, the customer experience, the product design, shipping, how you control all the resources you need. So we kind of like this idea of controlling everything from top to bottom in a way that it creates a better user experience, and also makes it possible that we can offer some things that other companies that are more horizontal, they cannot.
So what's the vision for Handcash in say 10 years time? How are you vertically integrated, and what does ultimate success look like for you?
I think Handcash is going to become, I would say already is, an ecosystem of apps that are connected and use nano payments. And I think it's the term that we want to keep using, because I think we are the only company doing this right now. And I think what we just want is to make everything that we already stand for much better. I mean, we want to improve the social aspect of it. We are going to add the Fiat Ramps pretty soon, and the more apps we have, the more interactions we have. I think it's going to be a very exciting ecosystem of apps and games. Ultimately, I don't know in 10 years if we might have other product lines, but for what I can, at least I would like to keep it simple and just make it and just excel at doing one thing, which is nano payments.
So in kind of coining and popularizing the term nano payment, you've also popularized another kind of denomination of Bitcoin, which is the Duro. Can you say why you chose that, and what the Duro is, and why this is important for the future of nano payments?
We think it's important because we don't want to sell or talk about Bitcoin. I mean, if you say you're a Bitcoin wallet, you are the number. There are 50,000 more Bitcoin wallets out there, and game developers don't care about Bitcoin. What they actually want is a virtual currency that's cross-app, that's easy to, super easy to move, very cost effective for them. So basically, Duro is just, we are just taking the token that works the best, which is the BSV token itself, instead of building another token on top of it. And we use that token, or 500 of them, like Satoshis, 500 Satoshis of BSV. And that's what we call a Duro. And it's basically we don't see it as a denomination of Bitcoin, because then even though technically it is, we see it as a product by itself. And we are promoting this product to esports companies and newspapers and all these kinds of companies that want to integrate nano payments. And I think it's easier for them to say, hey, you have this, we have this virtual currency that's called Duro. It's universal. You can use it in any app, game. It's compatible between apps and games, and it works worldwide. And if you have fears for fluctuations and all that stuff, we just take care of that for you. So we don't want to talk to them about crypto or public blockchains or private blockchains, or we don't want to enter that debate. We have this product, it works, and that's all they need to know.
Got it. So just taking a bit of a step back, how did you decide to build on kind of, BSV or, the version of Bitcoin without this limit on scale? Was that something that you did from the very beginning? Did you come to it? What did that journey look like in terms of deciding, what protocol to build this company on top of?
The first working version of Handcash was built on BTC because we, as I said, Rafa and myself, we take branding very important, and BTC, was the category, the king of the category, and we wanted to use it. Problem is that it didn't matter that we wanted to use it, was that it didn't work, especially because we started the first prototype of Handcash in late 2017, and the price started to skyrocket, the fees started to skyrocket, the mempool became clogged. So it was a very bad experience, and we started looking elsewhere, especially after we attended the first Bitcoin meetup that we attended in person in Madrid. And none of them wanted Bitcoin to work. They just wanted it to just price go up, and they were against big blocks. They were against using Bitcoin as cash. So, it was obvious for us that we had to look elsewhere. We changed to Bitcoin Cash. It was a great decision back then. And then we got tired of all these developer fights with ABC, and it was we didn't know what BCH stood for, and we knew that the vision of BSV was very clear. Was that they wanted to be the regulatory friendly business enterprise, solid foundation. We knew what they stood for, and it was a very easy choice for us, and we're so happy that we took that decision instead of staying on Bitcoin Cash.
Was there any other serious competition in terms of what you were evaluating to build on?
At first, when we were looking elsewhere from BTC, we were looking at things like Lightning Network, but we discarded it immediately because for us, and still applies to this day, for us is not a scaling solution, but a censorship and control solution for the companies that are holding BTC down. And we don't like that, and I think it's super expensive to make it work properly, and you're not inventing anything new. You're just replicating the current banking system, but in the hands of Silicon Valley companies. So we discarded that immediately. We started looking at Litecoin, but the problem with Litecoin is that their scaling roadmap was basically the same as BTC. So it would end up with, if it were successful, it would end up with Lightning Network too. And we ended up in the finals with Nano and BCH. The problem was that Nano didn't have any investment. We didn't see any businesses behind Nano, and we didn't see investors behind Nano. And to be honest, we had 2 or 3 concerns on the technology, but the BCH, which was the most faithful representation of the Bitcoin white paper, we knew how to scale it.
Funny you mentioned Nano. That was one of the last positions that we had at the fund before kind of focusing solely on the Bitcoin SV ecosystem.
Nice.
haven't thought of that network for a while. So how did you get from being a wallet company to creating this app ecosystem and developer toolkit?
It was pretty crazy. We started, in fact, our first investment deal was not ideal because we didn't thought that this would be, just a silly wallet. But as we started to understand the technology, we saw, hey, what if we, instead of sending money, because we didn't like, there were some apps and blogs and stuff that you had to send money, you had to, on every Bitcoin app, you had to deposit money. Then the money got into that service. You had to write down 12 words for every service that you were using. So it was very crappy. And we challenged ourselves. So can we fix this somehow? I mean, can we just make our wallet work there? And that's how we came up with the first login system with Bitcoin, which was at the time called Cashport. And for us, it was an obvious step forward because we thought that the future was in what you can do with Bitcoin instead of just person-to-person payments, which is very limited use. It's pretty cool, but it's a very limited use. So it was very obvious for us that we would have way more transactions and we would provide much more value if we could connect to apps and games. And we had built a few MVPs to test the technology, and then Streamanity implemented it first. And there was no turning back. Then Money Button copied the same system, and now we're here, and now it's the standard for the whole industry.
What are some of the apps that are actually built in the Handcash ecosystem today, or that you're excited about, or even what are some of the business models and apps that you haven't seen built yet that you're excited about? Handcash.
Yeah. The cool thing is that we don't have. At first, we thought that everything would be gambling apps because that's what you have seen in crypto for a few years. But we've seen all kinds of apps, especially social media, marketing, games. We have seen all of this, but I think games are the ones that have the most potential, also because the target audience is more ready for this. I think games are a big part of this, and also can generate the biggest amount of engagement and users. And I think, for example, what Haste came up with, this new business model that didn't exist before, about the ranking system that you guys implemented with BSV 2048, which I suck playing at it. My girlfriend is great at it, but I really suck at it. I even suck when I try to be the worst on the, because you can play also to see if you can make the worst game possible. I also suck at that too. So, but it's a very fun experience to use. It's kind of, you are reinventing arcade games, but with instant rewards.
Yeah.
And instead of just getting this kind of silly tickets, paper tickets that you get in the arcades that you can exchange for cheap Chinese knockoff toys, you can actually go and spend those tickets, in this case BSV tokens, in any other app or game, or even you can cash out to buy a gift card for Starbucks or something. I think all this interconnectivity between the virtual and the real world, what we saw in Ready Player One, is what all this technology is about, really.
So how do fiat on and off ramps tie into this? To the ecosystem you're building? Because right now, Duro, I know you wouldn't necessarily want to think of it as a denomination of Bitcoin, but it is tied to the price of Bitcoin. So as a result, that kind of fluctuates a lot. And I know that you also agree that kind of the future of nano payments involve payments with assets that don't move around or fluctuate in price. So what are you working on in terms of the on or off ramps, and what do you think is essential for growing kind of the world of nano payments?
Yeah, for the on and off ramps, this is something that was very frustrating for us because, as I said, we like specialization. We would like to specialize in doing one thing and do it the best we can, instead of trying to divert our focus into many areas. And we were assuming, like 2 years ago, when the logging system was kind of obvious that this was the way to go, that exchanges and other kinds of companies would provide these top-up services for wallets and games and apps. And turns out we were wrong, and they were not interested in it because they saw that they could make more money short term by focusing on speculation. So we had to build the Fiat Ramps ourselves, our way, focused on a nano payments ecosystem. So what we ultimately want is that you, someone that doesn't have a Handcash account, can have a Handcash account and be connected to Twitch, for example, and already have $5 into their account in 1 minute. And we don't want any friction. We want, the KYC super fast. We want everything super fast. And for us, it was very frustrating that nobody was trying to make possible to top up $5 at low fees and instantly peer-to-peer with Bitcoin. So we had to build it ourselves. And regarding what you said about fluctuation, I think we see it in a different way. We see Duros as, for example, I don't know if you played NBA 2K or FIFA or any of these games. Did you?
I was gonna say no. I'm not a gamer. I know.
Okay.
Steve and Jack are spending a lot more time on games than myself. I like poker.
Yeah.
That I like.
Okay.
I like gambling, as most people to this know. But in terms of video games, I just always preferred to do card games where I could wager some money than do the other stuff. Not that I wouldn't like it. It's just kind of how things are. Yeah.
Well, for example, in NBA 2K, I didn't play much this year, but you have a team. You have a mode that's called My Team, and basically you are buying cards for players. Like you would collectible cards. And you can use those players in the game. I mean, you can compose your team with cards basically, and there you can go and purchase cards and sell your cards and whatever. There's a market in there, and the funny thing is that they have this virtual currency. In fact, it's called VC. You pay VCs, and even though you never see the fiat value of them, you understand by the context how much they cost. I mean, how much it takes to earn them. And by comparing to other cards and other values, whatever, it creates a real in-game value for the currency, even though you cannot tie it to fiat. So the same thing we want to do with Duro, but in a way that instead of having VCs for NBA 2K, you have this one virtual currency that all games and apps use. And so our theory is that over time you'll get it will become a measurement system, a value system by itself, and you can compare things like if like for example is €3 in Twitch and €5 in Relica, then you understand, oh, for a like it's it's more expensive on Relica to like something, whatever. So by the context, I think it will get its own value inside of games. Duro is not about what you can buy with fiat, it's what can you do inside of games, what kind of a virtual economy can you spend, let's say. So it's different regarding fluctuations.
Yeah, that's a longer conversation.
It's much longer. Yeah,
I think that's a good example of something that's very Steve Jobs advocated for, which a lot of visionary product founders still do today, but is still, I think, the minority of what tech founders are doing, which is instead of asking people what they want and delivering that, Steve Jobs is famous on not asking, but giving them what they don't even know that they want. So the Duro and the fluctuation that will accompany that for the foreseeable future is part of that. Also, keyless wallets is part of that. So can you speak to your decision on delivering? I mean, that also might be an example where people also, I think, want that as well. Not be the best example, but why do you decide to make it easy for folks to not have to write down?
Well, we are obsessed with metrics, and we want to measure everything. And for example, we have always measured. We have these conversion funnels. So when a user starts in the first page of Handcash, the welcome screen, then they tap this button. How many people advance to the next screen? How many of those advance to the next screen? So we realized that for many people, the 12 words was something that they skipped immediately. So they didn't even took the time to write them down. And we were constantly, every day, we were constantly getting emails of, hey, I lost my 12 hours, how do I recover my money? And although technically we are used in crypto to say, oh, that's your fault, which maybe it is, but it's also our fault because we are exposing our target audience to something that they shouldn't be exposed to. So the way we saw it is that we had to take care of it. And one mantra that we have at Handcash is that when we want to find a solution for something, we always say that when the question is, when you make the right question, the answer is obvious. And with the killer system, what we wanted, we had to find the right question, which was, how can we make this thing non-custodial, but in a way that we can help our users be able to restore, I mean, we can help our users restore their accounts without us having control of the account. So that's why we came up with this design, which was based on, a part of it is the threshold signature scheme. It's just a tiny fraction of it, but I think it's the keystone of what makes it work. But the whole system is much more complicated than that. But basically what we do is that when you sign up for Handcash, there are two different keys created that are never created at the same time, and they are never, I mean, it's not that we create a whole private key and then we split it. Is that we create two different keys, and we, with this threshold signature scheme, there's kind of an equation that for, you know, this key and this other key multiply whatever. It's kind of a complicated thing. But the cool thing is that basically you can sign up and recover your Handcash account with your phone number and email address, just like accessing any other normal app.
But it's still Bitcoin?
Sure. Exactly the same thing. I mean, the only, yeah, no, I would say the only difference.
No keys, no treasure, man.
We don't care about that. We used to say we used to say that sacred cows make the best burgers.
Speaking of sacred cows, Alex, so you're from Spain. You started the business in Spain. You're currently in Andorra, correct?
Yeah.
I know that you've had some challenges as an entrepreneur in Europe. So can you speak to what some of those challenges have been operating as an entrepreneur, building an ambitious product, within Spain, maybe to some lesser degree within Andorra, and why you're moving to the great land of freedom, Austin, Texas, with us here at Unbounded?
Well, it all started because I'm from a very small town, a very small town in the east coast of Spain, and I started doing my first businesses over there. And when you want to do business, size matters. I mean, not just how many, the population, but also their wealth, the kind of people you surround yourself with. And then I went to another a town that was a little bit bigger, and I saw that my quality of life went a little bit bigger, and I found a few investors that gave us a little bit more money, but it was still too small. And when we were trying to fund this company, when investors realized that we were in this small town, they were like, "Oh shit, I don't want to invest in that." Just because we were there. I mean, the product was great, and we had users in Madrid, in Barcelona, in Mexico, but they didn't care about that. It's like they were like, "Oh shit, they must be doing something very wrong if they are still in that shithole." So then we moved to Madrid, and things got much better. But the problem is that in Spain and Europe in general, taxes are, well, I would say in Spain especially, taxes are very high, and also even if you move to countries like Andorra or Estonia or whatever, the tech hubs that you have and the business hubs that you have over there are very small. And if you want to dream big, I mean, it's okay. It's fine if you just want to have a medium-sized company and, do your life and have your dog and whatever. But if you really want to go big and work 20 hours a day and be obsessed about business and do a $50 billion company, you have to go to the United States. And that's what everybody tells me. And when you talk about with investors, especially for American investors, they know much more about startups and investors than other investors here in Europe and Spain. They have another kind of experience, and that's very positive for us, and also the kind of businesses we are targeting, esports companies, etc. They are in the US. Most of them are at least the most important ones, and we want to be where the action is. And you know, we are young. We want to spend 20 hours a day working and where it matters.
Well, we're gonna welcome you with open arms here when
I can't wait to go.
Happens. Yeah. So wrapping things up, and you know, and any audience members in the webinar now, this is my last question before we open it up to y'all. But what is a strongly held belief, Alex, you have that you think most people within the BSV Bitcoin world would disagree with?
Can you repeat the question? Maybe I want to understand.
What is something that you think strongly that you believe that you think most people within BSV don't share?
I would say the first thing that comes to my mind is the word interoperability. I think it became a buzzword, and it's not that we don't wish for having interoperability, but when you understand the incentives that a company has, and that, you know, we want to invest in Handcash. You know, we are not a non-profit. We want to make Handcash the best we can, and we have limited resources, and that's something that I think many. When you're a hobbyist or you are just building your own small project, you don't take resources that much into account, because after all, you're just doing what you can in your free time. But when you are in this and you spend your, you know, you dream about what you're doing, and you cannot even take a day off because you're obsessed about what you're doing, you cannot wait for others to catch up with what you're doing and to agree with the way you want to solve things and to make everything compatible. And also, I think in the real world, at least, maybe this changes in the future, okay? But we are talking about the present. Network effect is very important. And imagine, and this is a conversation that I had with one of the top people in WhatsApp. And he told me one of the things that people, that these crypto people don't understand is that for companies like ours, if, for example, every time that WhatsApp went down, you just sign in to Telegram with no drawbacks, your family is still there, everybody's there, your conversations are in Telegram, and you have exactly the same UI. They cannot retain users, they cannot raise capital, they cannot pay their employees, they cannot afford to invest in innovation. They have no incentive to actually build a great product, because it's what for? I mean, we've been told by some kind of social body that we have to do this way, and every company that wants to build a chat has to go through this. The other problem with that is that when you see everybody going in the same direction, the incentive to go in the other way is super high. So actually, this kind of the best thing that can happen to a contrarian company like ours is that everybody agrees on something in a sector. If you want to attack an industry, the best way is to see what everybody in that industry agrees, and then do exactly the opposite in the areas that matter the most.
Well, on that note, Alex, really appreciate it. And for everyone else on the call right now, feel free to ask Alex questions directly, or if you'd rather me ask them, just
Sure.
drop it in the chat.
Yeah, me open the chat just in case.
Jack, looks like you want to say something.
I always want to say something, but I'll wait. because we have some other questions.
Okay. Do you have revenues? I think they mean if we are making money yet. We are waiting for the Fiat Ramps to do this, especially because we are in Spain, and in Spain the regulation for crypto is incredibly bad. So as a Spanish company, we were advised not to monetize yet. So that's why we set up our crypto payments company in Estonia, and we will apply for a payment processor license in Lithuania. And just it's kind of ridiculous that you have to go to all these different countries just to get a fair deal for something as basic as this, but
Yeah.
it's the kind of world we live in. So no, but we will our provisions are very positive in terms of revenue once we have the Fiat Ramps. If we just translate the numbers that we have of deposits and withdrawals into the Fiat Ramps and at the percentage that we would take, and that's not even taking into account how many more people would get into Handcash just to buy BSV because it's the most convenient way. So we're very positive about this. We're not no. In fact, we made our first revenue last year with royalties from our merchandising. I think it was just $20 or something.
Nice.
But yeah. Have you seen user growth in 2021? Yeah, very strong, very strong. And I think this is something that I didn't talk with the Twitch guys or Peer Game, but we kind of know that we all have an understanding on growth of the whole ecosystem and what everybody else is doing. And we have seen a very strong growth in everything. We, for example, I think since we started, we only had 1 month, like a year and a half ago, that we had less active users than the previous month. And we are growing organically, but we are growing very strongly. And just in the last 2 months, we processed over 1 million transactions, and that's awesome. And we can't wait for having a whole month in just 1 month 1 million transactions. And might be this month, maybe next month, I don't know. But we are very, very happy about how the ecosystem is growing in general, not just Handcash. Can you talk about your strategy? Sorry. Please.
What is the revenue model? What is the revenue model that you're intending?
Yeah, we'll take a fee for every trade.
It's a transaction fee.
That's but for every Fiat Ram transaction in and out.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The cool thing is that with other optimizations in the future, our cut, even though we might even lower the fee, our margin will be higher because we'll be using other technologies for this, and we will, but with volume, we will have lower rates. And that's part of it. We are exploring other business models that have never tried before. Imagine Handcash Prime or something like that, when you pay $3 or $4 a month, and you have all the on ramps and off ramps that you want in a month, or even extra services. So we are looking into other ways of monetizing, but right now I think just adding a small fee to every Fiat Ramp trade is a very solid proposition, and it's very easy to control and predict. Also, we have to take care that we have to have enough liquidity for serving. That's why we need another funding round. Liquidity is something that's worrying us for the first months of the Fiat Ramps, but I think we are going to do fine.
Yeah,
I can imagine apps that are being built at a company like Unbounded Enterprise also being willing to pay for, let's say, like more favorable placement with like a search in the growing Handcash app store.
Yeah, we will. There's a kind of an issue with that. we are having an issue with Apple, and they don't want us to recommend. So we basically for iPhone, we are having to replace the app gallery with another thing, which will be similar, but it's not the same thing. But we are going to drastically improve the website, so it's going to become the main focus for this. And also, interesting thing is that our main target audience is mostly on their computer all day, which are gamers, and so it's not that big of a deal. We don't expect to have that issue with the Google Play Store, but yeah, we think it could be interesting once we have a lot of apps. In fact, we already have some inquiries because some people don't like that we had alphabetical order in the app gallery, and they said, oh, but we were at the bottom and this other company is in the top, whatever. We were there first. So yeah, we can monetize that too. The thing is that I think they are still not making enough money for paying an amount that matters to us at this point.
In light of this news about the alphabetical ordering, we're announcing that BSV 2048 is rebranding to AAAAA 2048.
Well, the alphabetical order, I think it's something that we changed. And we gave some weight based on volume of transactions or something, I don't know. Okay, can you talk about your strategy for attracting more developers to building on Handcash Connect? Yeah, we are preparing a hackathon. It's been held because we are being incredibly busy in many areas at the same time, but we expect to announce it maybe next week, the hackathon that we are preparing. And basically with Handcash Connect, the cool thing is that we can attract new kinds of developers. We don't even want to target Bitcoin developers this time. We want to go for Flutter developers, which are, Flutter is a framework for developing and for building apps that is the one that we use for Handcash, and it was created by Google, and it's great because with one code base you can export to website, you can export to iOS, to Android, and you only have one code base. And people are very enthusiastic about this framework, and we have been making doing a lot of networking with the Flutter people and some community leaders, and they are really in love with the idea of the Connect SDK. And yeah, our first hackathon will be targeted to them. And I think more than seeing successful apps, what we want to see is how, if we give these tools to 30 different developers that are, they don't have any experience with Bitcoin and they don't have the Bitcoin mindset, what kind of new business models can they come up with? Because then the business model is something that other companies also can take note of. And I think finding right now the new business models that we can create with nano payments is more important than having super successful apps at this point. I think that will come after we get after we come up with new business models.
I think we got time for one or two more questions.
Just mention, I love the idea of not ever talking about Bitcoin. I think that's great.
Thanks. We thought it was the biggest issue when you start talking about Bitcoin, especially if you say, oh no, it's not even Bitcoin, it's a fork of Bitcoin Cash, because then in 2017 people turn off their
it just
brains.
Opens a can of worms that has nothing to do with what you really what you want to do.
Yeah, and then they think, oh, but then this is the fake Bitcoin, so it's a fake thing to a scam for criminals. So you don't even want to enter that conversation. We're just creating a product that's called Duro. We can promote Duro with absolute freedom and with nobody even knows what a Duro is until they hear from us. So yeah, it's a clean slate for us in terms of marketing. we are still using the same technology.
Yeah, with that in mind,
Great.
you're a company building on Bitcoin. You're not fully embracing the Bitcoin brand necessarily, but how do you think the crypto boom has affected Handcash the past year?
I think in the early stages, when there was a spike in price, we saw, more usage and more active users in Handcash, but that didn't translate into real activity. Just people logging in, maybe checking, how much is worth what I have, and even though we wanted to focus everything on utility didn't came for us until we had the apps. So at first it was a big factor, but in the last 3, 4, 5 months, it's been mostly a non-factor, I would say. I mean, we have been growing at the same rate, even though for a few months, BSV was kind of a stable coin. So we're not seeing any major spike that would indicate that the BSV going to 500 had anything to do with our activity and users, which I think is a good indicator. The more we decouple from speculation, at least for us, the better. 99.9% of companies can still do their speculative thing. We think that this crypto gambling thing will get old pretty soon after, how many hype cycles can people sustain until they lose all faith in this technology? And the more people that get exposed to this over and over again, and they figure out that, there's no use for this. I think it's good for BSV. I think the crypto wars only matter as long as people care about crypto, but then utility will have the last word.
Well, on that note, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today at Unbounded Live. And we look forward to welcoming you with open arms into the United States and into Austin, Texas, more specifically. I hope you have a wonderful night. And for everyone here,
I have no choice.
And everyone that is listening to this after the fact, thanks for taking the time to listen to this interview today.
Thank you.